everybody. I wanted to sit and do this. I've just felt compelled to do it for some time now, but really in the past couple of weeks, it's just been this constant feel. I can't explain it, but when I get this feeling, it's like, all right, I have to do it. So for a very long time, I've wanted to put all of my clairvoyant moments or prophetic dreams, all of these things together in one place. And it was part of why I had wanted to write a book before. Just part. So people have asked me, if I'm psychic, and I don't know why it bothers me. I'm not somebody who really likes labels anymore. And so for me, it's like, I have this ability. Yeah, I'm able to tap into. I don't know how else to put it. So I'm going to tell you a few things that have happened over my life, the significant moments, and I guess I'll let you be the judge. So for those who would like to know if I'm psychic, here you go. I'll let you know some of the things that have happened and you tell me. So I'll start with the one when I was about 13. At the time, I was living on a street with quite a few kids that were around the same age as me, maybe 8 to 10 of us. And, I had gotten the idea to have a block party. Now, I'm only 13 years old. We had to go about getting the street closed down legally. We had to go to different companies to get donations and gifts and, 7-Eleven donated cups and all these things that, in hindsight, pretty proud of myself as a 13-year-old to be able to accomplish what we did. And my uncle at the time was a cop and another was a fireman, and we were able to, have the street shut down legally and easily because of that. And we ended up getting ponies for pony rides. It was a big deal. So at the time of this, I remember standing on my parents' front step, and it had just come over me as we were doing something where I kind of stood up and I'm like, I'm going to marry a Mike or Joe from Europe. And it just felt so true to me in that moment. Now, Europe to me, geography was never my thing, but at that age, Europe meant England or anywhere over there. So fast forward about 7 years, I ended up marrying a man named Mike. And when I met him, I was still dating someone that I had been with for a long time, whose brother's name was Joe. Now, Joe had been engaged to somebody. Joe's fiance left him for Mike, and then she ended up passing away, and Mike and I ended up together. I say that because I said Mike or Joe. When I met Mike, there was a Joe in the equation there. So it was just interesting. And Mike was from England. So he had come, and as a matter of fact, he had come to England the very year that I had made the statement that I was going to marry the Mike or Joe. So, that was about 7 years later, 8 years later, that I ended up marrying him. So that's just one small example. And, you're all probably like, whatever, no big deal. That's not psychic. Bear with me. So fast forward again, I'm going to jump to a pretty significant event, being 9/11. I had moved to California in 1999. That's when I got married. And it was early, my daughter was born in 2000, in June of 2000. So I'm going to say this was right before I was pregnant with her that this happened. My husband at the time was to travel. We were living in San Diego, or near San Diego, and he had to come back east for work, and he was going to the World Trade Center. And the night before he was leaving on this trip, the feelings are going through me again, sorry, as I even tell this. The night before his trip, I remember being in the bathroom, and we were actually in the bathtub together. And all of a sudden, I just started crying and shaking. And just the words just started coming out of me. I'm like, you can't go. You can't go. And it was, borderline panic. And he couldn't understand what was going on. He's like, what? He's like, I'm leaving in the morning. I can't cancel this. What? And I said, I don't know. I got out of the tub. I laid on the floor. I wrapped myself up, and I couldn't stop shaking. And I said, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the flight or the place. I said, but I can't put it together. I just know that something's wrong. Now, this was well over, I guess, over a year before 9/11. Just about, just a little over, I think. And so it wasn't making any sense. He ended up going on the trip, and nothing happened. So now, as we all know, the following year, it was both the plane and the building. So I had that horrific feeling like something was wrong, couldn't quite put the puzzle together, figure out what it was. And, there was enough time that went by that I didn't even put all that together when 9/11 happened, except the morning of 9/11. My husband had left early that morning for work. I was still sleeping. At this point, we have a daughter, and her nursery was just down the hall, and she was asleep in her crib. I was having what I could only call a nightmare, and I still recall it. It was vivid, and it was a bloody massacre that was going on. It was like this battlefield, and I could hear the screams, and I could see blood, and it just was awful. And one of the screams in my dream woke me up. So I went running down the hall to check on my daughter, and she was sound asleep. So I thought, okay, well, I guess the nightmare woke me up. I get back in bed, and the phone rings, and it's my husband saying, turn the TV on. And I turned the TV on, and within seconds of doing that, the second plane had hit. The plane, I guess the first plane had landed in the field. Is that right? I'm not sure the sequence of events, but it was as if I had been dreaming about this. Like I was hearing the screams of these people, and just the carnage, the wreckage, the blood, it was in my dream that morning. So now I start to think to myself, this is getting odd. These things that have been happening my whole life, I'm only telling you 2 or 3 right now, but this had always been going on. And, I had been medicated many times for it. It was deemed to be, depression and anxiety. And, they tried every antidepressant and put me on Xanax. And that was never the answer. It was that I had come from a very traumatic childhood, and my neurodevelopmental years, I had to be highly attuned. I had to be hyper aware and hyper vigilant because I was in survival. I was in chronic fight or flight. I had a single mother who would leave me with people because she was alone and needed to work. And I had been in a lot of situations very early on that were traumatic. And so it's important to tell you that to paint the picture of why this could be happening to me. So now at this point, I'm starting to think maybe this isn't mental illness. Maybe this isn't really what they're saying it is. Why do I have the ability to see things before they happen? Why do I've heard conversations before they've happened. I knew when people were lying to me. It was very, very easy to understand that or pick up on that. And now with the education I have, and after a spiritual awakening, near-death experience, all of these things, studying psychology and neurology and anatomy and the way things work. And, I'm one whose brain seeks patterns. I find patterns easily. So, now I'm starting to think, as my 22, 23, 24-year-old self, there's something more going on here. So then I get pregnant with my second child. I'm still living in California at the time. And one night I have this dream, very, very vivid, so vivid that I couldn't shake it. It was about a little girl who had been taken, and in the dream I could see that she was taken to a place. It looked as if she was on a roller coaster. I could see her going up and down, and she's with a man. I couldn't see him, but I knew she was with a man. And then I knew that she was murdered, and I could see her body. I could see she was lying under a tree. I could see what she was wearing, and it seemed to me like half of her body was burned. So after having this dream, it's really bothering me, and I'm pregnant at the time, so it hit me even harder. I was already a mother, and now I'm pregnant again, and it's like, the torture that this child went through and the murder, it just really shook me. So as I become very sick in my second pregnancy. I was sick in all of my pregnancies, but as I'm laying there in bed, I'm watching the news, and this story comes up about this little girl that they're looking for, about 20 minutes from where I lived. And her name was Danielle Van Dam. So if anybody's familiar with the story, this was a little girl. She was 7 years old, and she was taken from her home, and they had been searching for her. And the neighbor had become, I think, their number one suspect. It had come out that he had seen the mother out that night that the girl went missing, and the mother had rejected him. He had tried dancing with her, and I guess tried taking it a little further, and she rejected him. She was married, and I guess he didn't take kindly to that, and he ended up going back to her house and taking her daughter, and he took her out to a desert. So in my dream, when I saw the roller coaster going up and down here, he had taken her out to sand dunes. So that's how I interpret it, my dream anyway. So that was aligning. So as the story was playing out and the time it took for them to find her and finally arrest him, I had actually reached out to their search party and to the FBI. And I told them about my dream. I told them I knew a man had taken her, and I knew what she was wearing. I knew that she was murdered and she was under a tree. And I knew roughly the area. It was out by Joshua Tree. So obviously, psychics are seen as woo-woo, they're crazy. So nobody took me seriously. I didn't even get a reply from either group. And, that makes you go further into yourself and makes you want to stay in your shell and not share these things with people, because it's deemed crazy. Whatever people don't understand is deemed crazy. I know that now, and that's fine. But at the time, it's pretty hurtful. So you just keep it to yourself more and more. So as I watch it all play out, I even called into a radio station one night and talked to them about it there. And they found it fascinating, but, nothing came of it. So finally, after everything plays out and all of the details that I had told everybody were entirely right, I still couldn't let go of this. So I ended up painting a picture of an angel, and it said, "In the arms of an angel, waiting to be met again by those who have loved her." And I'll never forget it. The year this happened, I believe, was 2000. It was 1 or 2. I believe it was between 2001 and 2 somewhere. So I paint this picture. I get my daughter, who is only a little over a year and a half old at the time. And we go, I just needed to drive to the house of this little girl. And as I pull into the neighborhood, there are news vans and there are just people everywhere. And at the corner, about 3 houses up, I guess, or so, from where they lived, there was a shrine, and people had been leaving flowers and teddy bears and all this stuff. And it was the strangest thing, as I walked from my truck to that corner with the painting in my hand, I felt compelled to walk to the house. And everybody was respecting or trying to respect their privacy and not really going up to the house. But for some reason, I just felt like I had to. So I started to walk towards it. And as I did, the front door opened. And I just turned right back around and walked back towards the corner. And I thought, I don't want to come face to face. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. So I walked back to the corner and I put my painting down. And it was as if the seas were parting. It was the father of the deceased little girl. And at this point now they're, in the throes of it. They know what happened. The murderer is now, in custody and all that. So all these people part, and I'm standing there holding my daughter's hand, and the father comes walking down the sidewalk straight at me, and he's walking his dog. And he gets right up to us, and he bends down and starts talking to my daughter. And I'm like, is this really happening right now? I'm like, I have been connected to this family for months. I knew what happened before any of them did. And now I get here, and there are over 100 people standing here, and he's walking right up to me. It felt surreal, but it kind of was what I needed, I think, because I got to look him in the eye and say, I am so very sorry for what happened to you. And we just locked eyes, and he thanked me. And it was a moment that I needed. It didn't mean anything to him. He had no idea who I was or my connection to the story. And I obviously was not going to tell him. But I did say I felt compelled to make this for you. And I pointed to the painting, and he thanked me. And that was that. And he walked off with his dog. And just very interesting. So my next occurrence like that was, let's see, the next big one. I'm going to fast forward to 2018, 17 or 18. I had a friend that I met online, and we had been friends. We would talk on the phone all the time. I mean, we spoke every day, whether it was online or on the phone, and we became very, very close over a 7-year period. I had a dream one night that she was walking up my steps, and I laughed and I said, what are you doing here? I would have cleaned my house if I knew you were coming. And, once again, the dream was so real, I couldn't let it go. So when I woke up, I said to my husband, I just had this dream that Christina was here. And I said, what are you doing here? I didn't clean the house. And, told him exactly what happened. And he didn't say anything. He just listened. Then I called her that day and I told her about the dream. Still not really thinking anything of it. About 2 days later, he's my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time hands me a piece of paper. And it's the flight details and the itinerary for her flight. He had actually booked a flight for her to come up so we could finally meet. And it was around my birthday. And so I had dreamt that she was coming before she came. So I called her and told her that he just told me. And she's like, we can't even surprise you. What the hell? So that was another good one. Another one being, let's see. I walked into, not a dream. This was almost a mediumship moment. This was about 2 years ago, a little less. I went into a bar and it was packed. They had a band and it was just so loud and busy and nowhere to sit. And I was dating the bartender at the time. So I'm standing at the end of the bar, talking to him in his free moments. And there was this really pretty woman, long hair, dreadlocks, somebody that I feel like I would talk to. Well, she was sitting at the end with a male friend. Her friend gets up to leave after a while. And she says to me, would you like to sit here? Now, for probably over an hour, I had been standing behind her and she had her back to me. When I got to the end of the bar is when it really was like, I need to talk to this woman. So when she offered his seat to me when he got up to leave, I instantly said to her, I don't know if you're open to this, but there's something coming through for me that I feel I have to tell you. But if you're not open, it's okay. And she goes, oh, no, I'm very open, but can you wait till we go outside so I can hear you better? And I think she already knew what it was that was coming through because of the timing. So she wanted to be prepared for the conversation. I didn't know exactly what it was in the moment. I just knew what I needed to tell her. So when we went outside, I said, it's really not that big a deal. I just wanted to tell you that I'm getting this very strong feeling like you are surrounded by animals and that you had a very, very close male in your life pass away in the past 5 years, and he's very much around you. And now mediumship is not my gift. So for that to come out of my mouth, it was the first time I'd ever really done that. But it was so strong that I couldn't ignore it. And when I said it to her, she started to cry. And she said, you have no idea what that means to me. She said, it's 5 years ago next week that my brother passed. And I just quit my job as a massage therapist to become a pet sitter because I'm so drawn to animals. And it was like, oh, wow. Ended up being a profound moment for both of us. So it's only been in about the last 6 years that I truly started to embrace this as a gift and stop looking at it as mental illness or I'm crazy because other people couldn't understand. But, it just all started to make sense. So all of these things that had been happening my whole life from, being a teenager and thinking I was hallucinating when I could hear conversations before they would happen, or at times being able to see spirits. I would assume at the time that I was just really stressed and, again, hallucinating. But as time has gone on, and in 2018, when I had my near-death experience and my awakening, that's when I started to really dive into what was going on and try to understand the psychology, the neurology, how the psychic phenomenon, like what is behind that. Is it truly real? Is it possible? And in learning about all of that, I was able to finally embrace this and never, still now don't feel like there's any need for medication. Once you understand it and embrace it and accept, you're able to then hone the skill and the gift and, use it as a tool in your life. It's beneficial. And like with that woman, I'm still friends with her now, 2 years later, because that moment was so profound. I feel like she will always be in my life. And, I'm telling you all of this because this has been my entire life. And for so long, almost 40 years of my life, I looked at it like it was a detriment and that there was something wrong with me or that I was broken or that I was ill. And I allowed other people to treat me that way and medicate me and try to silence it. And in other cultures, shamans, become healers by first healing themselves. And then, just like this, they accept the gift, they embrace it, and they use this to then help heal others. So in learning all of that, I hope that this reaches somebody out there who may be experiencing these things, hearing voices or having dreams like I have, and are looking at it like something's wrong with them. I just want you to know that it was a simple perspective shift for me. It did take almost dying for it to happen, and I don't want that to be the case for others. So if I can save you any pain and you maybe are able to shift your perspective, flip your own script and realize you're not broken. If you had experienced trauma in your past, that it does play a part of it. You were made to become hyper aware very, very early. And that awareness, not even a self-awareness, it's just awareness of everything around you. You're very present. You're always in the moment, because when you are built, when you come from those early years of chronic fight or flight, you just know, you live differently. You see things differently than other people because you had to. You had no choice. It was how you survived and how you came to perceive the world. Everything was a threat very early on. So you had to be aware. So these things do play a part in these abilities. And like I said, or maybe I didn't say, but in the first 7 years of life, those neurodevelopmental years, how you are raised, your environment at that time plays a part in this, and how important that is. So if you were in a state of chronic fight or flight in those first 7 years, you could read a room. You knew energy before, that's now like a trendy word, energy and vibes, but you knew that very early on, just instinctively, intuitively. You had to be tapped into that. So it makes sense that I was always more attuned, but didn't understand that that's what it was. So if somebody out there is suffering, if you've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, I would urge you to look into, in fact, there's a TED Talk, is it a spiritual awakening or psychosis, I believe is what it's called. And I believe his name is Phil Borges. I might be saying that wrong. But if you look it up, you'll find it. And it's enlightening. It became his passion, and he traveled to different indigenous cultures and spent time in psych wards in America. And he really, put that puzzle together in how other cultures will take somebody who has experienced a trauma, and they will take them away and kind of keep them isolated for a little bit and help them work through it, really process it, not suppress it. And it's when we suppress it that it does present as mental illness. It does present as pain, physically, emotionally. So when they're taken away, to be allowed to let the feelings come up, to actually feel, to heal, that is how they become a shaman. Once you healed, pain is wisdom. So if you're actually allowed and encouraged to heal and supported in that time, that is how you get to the other side. So other cultures do not medicate. Even in the UK, they will never just hand you a pill. They will first look at what's going on in your life and your stress levels, and they will question you and ask you a lot of things and actually make you go talk to somebody before prescribing pills. From what I know anyway, my ex-husband was British, and, his whole family, these are the things I've heard. So don't quote me if I'm wrong, if things have changed there, but I did have a brother-in-law who was very stressed, and he went to his doctor and they gave him 3 weeks off of work just to relax. I'm like, that is so foreign to us in America. That does not happen here. It just does not. This is the most fast-paced, unhealthy culture that there is. And here in America, we like to believe that we are the most advanced. We are the most, in healthcare and technology. We're not. I mean, we already know that in Asian countries, they're ahead of us in technology. Russia's ahead of us in space. We're not who we think we are. We're America. We really are doing things so ass backwards here. Healthcare being one of the worst. We allow, and I really shouldn't talk about this. I could be canceled for this, but it's the truth. So whatever happens, happens. And I'm not the only one speaking out about it, but Big Pharma runs this country. It's just the truth. And there's a pill for everything, a magic pill for everything. And it's the easy way out. And we have all become accustomed to that. We have fast food, we have microwaves, we have our phone in our hand all the time. We have, you have one little symptom and there's a pill for that. And nothing is actually ever slowed down and looked at and gotten to the root of. So that's just what we've all become accustomed to, and that's now our new norm. And unfortunately, that has landed us in a very, very bad way. And everybody is either obese or chronically ill or depressed or anxious, or, our autism rates are out of control. And America is the most highly vaccinated country. And for all of you that don't want to believe that vaccines play a part in health in any way other than making you healthier, I would just urge you to go and do some research. And by research, I don't mean get in groups with like-minded people who believe that vaccines are greatest thing in the world. Go listen to the parents, like myself, who had a child injured by a vaccine, and myself included, injured by a vaccine. In pregnancy, I was forced to take the RhoGAM shots because I'm Rh negative. And that's when my blood pressure issues started. I started passing out after those shots. And my youngest daughter, 2 months old, screamed for 23 and a half hours straight after a vaccine. I believe it was DTaP. And she had brain swelling. She had encephalitis. They wanted to act like she had a headache. That's what they told me. 23 hours this child screamed. She was purple. She was in so much pain. I will never forget it. At the time, I was a young mother. I was 23 years old, 22 years old, and we are taught to trust our doctors. So I did, and I continued to vaccinate. And every time I vaccinated, something happened to my children. I stopped vaccinating when my second daughter was maybe 4 or 5 years old. And by the time she was 7, she had chickenpox 3 times. Her nervous system could not take it. And many years later, through my journey with chronic illness after my freak accident and my cord injury and cord stroke and being disabled, I was tested for the MTHFR mutation, and I did. I had the whole panel, on that panel, I had several mutations, and that is your detox pathways. So when we receive vaccines, we cannot detox from the metals and all the adjuvants in there. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It should not be a protocol. They're not safe for everyone. And for those of you that want to disagree with me, you're welcome to. I, at one time, did vaccinate. I believed in everything I was being taught. I believed in my doctors until I didn't, because I couldn't anymore. I couldn't afford to anymore. So I would just urge you to do your research like I did. But once you start going down the rabbit holes, you're not going to like what you hear. You basically have to unlearn everything you've been taught. And I've had this conversation with doctors. One that I had gone to school with, he's now a chief of surgery in a local hospital. And he could not deny that what I was saying was true. And he actually said to me, it would be easier to empty the ocean with a red Solo cup than debate you. And I said, well, once you're a mother and your child is injured in any way, you become, it's the most fierce somebody can become. And I wanted to protect them. And that is what led me to do the research and listen to the whistleblowers and not just assume they were crazy like most people want to make them out to be. People had done that to me with my dreams and what I was hearing and experiencing. So now I knew better. And I started listening, and I came across thousands of parents and their stories about how their children were injured or even passed. Just it couldn't be denied anymore. And I know that, like I said before, when people don't understand something, we find it crazy. We call it crazy. And until you understand it, that's just how it is. So I went about the path of educating myself. And now I'm off on a tangent with that. Anyway, let me bring it back around to, I just don't want anybody out there who feels like they are losing it or they are depressed or anxious to feel like they are broken. I would urge you to do a little research. And if you don't believe in God, that's fine. It's not God for everyone. I believe in universal laws. But believing in something bigger, believing or knowing that there's definitely something more going on than meets the eye in every area, not just with spirituality or religion, but look at large companies, follow the money. Look at vaccines, follow the money. if you really do, and you come to find out, you walk in a grocery store and you think you have a million different options. Look at all these companies. Look at all these brands. I like Coke over Pepsi. Well, every one of those companies boils down to 5 companies that own everything. Do the research. When I said I had Rh negative blood, there's another rabbit hole. Why does the entire royal family and all but 1 or 2 U.S. presidents have that blood type? Research it. These are things that we don't talk about in school. We're not even allowed to learn about. We're not taught how to regulate our nervous system. We are not taught how to cook meals. We are not taught how to raise children or have coping skills for stress. We're not taught to meditate. They've taken prayer out of school, out of public schools. All the things that we need as human beings to be fully actualized, fully functional, to be able to get ourselves, to keep ourselves well, to balance the nervous system, to make sure that when stress arises, we can handle it properly. None of the things that really matter, how to be kind to each other, how to, if somebody's sick, how to rally the community, how to, all of these things, charity, these are not forefront in our school years and should be. Like how ass backwards is that? Yeah, let's learn some algebra that 95% of us are never going to use, and make you feel broken. Once again, if you fail that class, well, how are you ever going to make it in life? I'm 46 years old. I don't really need algebra. I don't recall using it anytime recently. Really don't. So I don't know, just something to think about. But the whole point of this really was to just share some of the moments in my life that would be deemed a medium or psychic or any of the Clairs. And I would ask yourself, if you're experiencing something similar, are you crazy or are you attuned? Do you have a gift? And should you be looking into honing that gift instead of looking at it like maybe it's a curse or maybe there's something wrong with you? Because I guarantee you, if you really think about it, if you really sit with it and you really look at the trauma in your life that hasn't been healed and you start to feel it and heal it and process, it's then that you will really be able to see you weren't crazy to begin with. And I think a big part of depression I have found working through it myself is to look at the people around you. There's that saying for a reason, like, if you think you're depressed, first look at the people around you and how many of them are assholes. I think you'll come to find that you might need to change your surroundings or the people in it. And that might help you greater than any medication ever could. And also, I am a big fan of therapy, not because I feel like a therapist can fix me, but I think it's when we speak our problems out loud and things we can't seem to work through, whether you journal or you speak them out loud to somebody, in the energetic sense, when we have trauma trapped in us, that frenetic energy, when we write it down, when we release the thoughts, we could write them down and burn them, or write them down and never, write a letter to somebody that has hurt us but not send it, or go to a therapist and speak it out loud. It is taking that frenetic energy, and as you release it, each time you speak these things out and get them out of you, that energy dissipates a bit. So the more you do it, the less control it has over you, the less it's controlling your emotions or your behaviors. So I guess I can kind of round it up there. I think I got my point across in, I don't really care for labels and diagnoses and all of that stuff. I like to get to the root and look at what's really going on and how is something affecting you? Why are you experiencing the symptoms you are? Where could they be stemming from? Whether that be neurologically from your spinal, your alignment, whether, structural or trauma related and psychologically, emotionally. Where is your pain coming from? Where are your symptoms coming from? There's always a way to get to the root, and we have to take those into account, those three key factors being, and they're all stressors: emotional stressors, chemical stressors, and physical stressors. They're at the root of everything we experience. So, but also emotions are chemicals. So eliminating that toxicity and working on your physical alignment, movement, your yoga and chiropractic, keeping your spine in good health, healthy fats and hydration, keep your joints and your vertebrae, keep your discs hydrated. And that's how nutrition gets to the brain, is through healthy hydrated discs. You need movement and hydration and healthy fats to do that. So bringing that all together, I started this out saying I was going to share some of my story and my experiences and let you be the judge if I'm psychic or not. I gave you just a few little examples, but it has been a lifetime of this for me. I almost don't go a day without having either a dream or, a moment of mediumship or clairvoyancy that I either share with people or just accept now as, oh, okay, that's something to pay attention to, or this could be coming up soon. It just gives me a different awareness, that's all. So, yeah, everything I said just now, take it or leave it. It's just me sharing my experience, and if it helps somebody out there, great. If you have any questions for me, I'm always open for a conversation about it. And in the future, I'd like to do some episodes with some psychics and mediums, and also, a neurologist, a friend of mine, and maybe we can all dive into how it all works and, how you can not only have the abilities, but strengthen them and use them to have a better life. So, yeah, I just want somebody out there to know that they're not broken. And if you are believing that you are, I promise you're not. I even wear a ring, and its symbol is bent, not broken. So on my bad days, I just remind myself, okay, you're just not living in the balance that you need. Get back there. And that keeps me where I need to be in life. And I just am constantly evaluating the people around me, my environment, what I'm eating. Am I moving enough? Am I getting enough sunshine? Am I laughing enough? Am I isolating too much? I have to look at all those things and make sure that I am living a life of balance. And that life of balance is the difference between being mentally ill or physically or chronically ill. You just have to find what's right for you. So that's that. Thank you all for listening. This was an unexpected and an unexpected episode of Ida the Fifth, but something I've been wanting to do for a while, and kind of wish I had shared a few more of maybe the prophetic dreams or stories, but I think you get the idea from what I said. So I'm going to leave it there. And yeah, if you're out there feeling a little broken or lost, I hope this helped a little. And also another term to keep in mind is synesthesia. If you are somebody who hears a few words and instantly hear lyrics, that is a form of musical synesthesia. And that happens to a lot of people. It's the most common form. So if that's happening to you and you have other things going on neurologically or psychologically, it's a term to know, because it's a crossing of the senses, and you may be perceiving the world and your own body and sensations differently than others. But you can also have a misperception, like where symptoms are coming from even, because if your neurology is skewed, your perception will be skewed. So synesthesia is something else to look into if you are feeling, like something might be off that you, or not even off, but something about yourself is different and you haven't been able to pinpoint what that is. It's a sensory thing. So it's very present in people with extrasensory abilities. So yeah, worth mentioning. Anyway, again, thank you for listening. I hope this helped somebody or was at least interesting, and we can talk more in the future. Thanks for listening to Ida the Fifth. I'm Steph. Have a great day.